Okay, so I gave it a bit of thought, and since we never got around to making the metallic map, I thought it might be cool to make a new mask in Photoshop that we can create metal veins that can sort of pop in and out, and we can turn them on and off. Another thing, since the last video I made, I downloaded the latest update to 2017, and they gave us our height back. In the previous version, it wouldn't go higher than 1, which really sucked. And clearly, I'm not the only person that thought it sucked, because in this new patch, they've fixed that. So I would actually like to see my depths deeper. And what's happening is that we're still getting too much noise happening in our height map. So we're going to have to kind of go back and fix that a little bit too. But that's the plan. So let's head back to Photoshop. And this is what we created in the last video. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it metallic. And this is our black and white, and I'm going to hit Alt, drag it up, and make a copy. So I want to have my metallic areas like up in where the white is right now. Not like all of it, but that's where I'd like to see it. So I'm going Image, Adjust, Levels. Get that a bit wider. And sort of, you know, try to isolate the where I want my metallic areas to pop up. Yeah, I think like that. I don't want them in here, but I can always get rid of it later once I take a look at my color map. So this is kind of correcting for the areas that I want, and then I can fine tune. I think I want to actually look at the color. Yeah, you know, I think I'll leave it the way it is. We might, let's maybe get rid of, because I'm not sure, I'm going to just color over with black some of these other areas, but it's on a separate layer, so I can always get it back. Just kind of clean it up and leave the bigger spots so it's not quite so noisy. And I haven't really touched the edges here, so I'm not going to worry about checking for the tiling to be correct, because every time you do this and you're going to be manipulating stuff around the edges, you got to remember that it's a tiled texture and you have to go through the whole offset and fix routine. And if we're dealing with several layers and we want to keep them as layers, we have to always keep straight that they're always in the same offset position. So let's save this as a metallic map. And I'm going to save it as a PNG. This is our metallic. And we'll save it. And we can come back in here into our Explorer, right click, and link a new bitmap. Is this the right one? I was just doing another one too, so I just want to make sure I'm in the right metallic. Okay, so now we can come down here and actually grab it up and pull it out, and we're going to change it to grayscale. And we can plug it into our metallic output. well, you know, it's kind of hard to see right now because it's, well, also because of the height. So before we go any further with taking care of all the procedural stuff, let's get our height map squared away. I like this depth for my crack. So whatever it is, I'm going to correct for this. Again, we're going to go back to Photoshop and we'll turn on our height map. And let's see what we have here. That's a paint layer. I think I'm just going to, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to make a new layer. I'm going to Control A to fill everything up. I'm going to get it into either lasso or some mode that'll allow me to fill, and I'm just going to fill this entire layer with white. And then I'm going to just move this mask up and I'm going to get rid of my original. And I've now made this completely white. It's got absolutely no little dots in it. And let's see how this works before we go any further. Height. Yep, that's better. And I'm going to do the same thing with the gray, because everywhere that is white according to the height map is now relying entirely on the normals for its sort of detail information. And I'm getting some jagged stuff here, but it's making sense because it's actually working with the heights. So let's see what happens if we go back to Photoshop and kind of do the same thing with this layer as well. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to come in here with my picker tool and I'm going to pick sort of one of these colors. And then again, I'm going to fill this entire area with my foreground color. And let's turn this stuff back on. Oh, wait a minute. There. Oh, except we had, okay, we had a hole punching through here. So I'm holding control and I'm going to click on that. And what that's going to do is it's just actually picking out the layer. And then I can come back into this new layer I made and just hit delete. Oh, except, no, first invert it and then delete it. Shift Control I for invert and then delete. And it's now doing what I need it to do. So let's save this out again. And at this point, the only place we're going to have any potential things is right on those edges where we don't have solid colors. But again, you know, it's rock, so I'm not going to get rid of it all at once. I kind of want to see how it goes step by step. Yeah. See, I don't mind it being jagged here. But I think what I'm going to do is I don't want it quite so jagged. But instead of, so now we're dealing with this. So instead of, I'm going to keep this one on. Instead of just turning it into a solid color, I'm going to go into I'm trying to decide levels maybe. And I'm flattening out the values now. And now I'm going to go into lightness, and I'm just going to make it match again. And that should work a bit better. So, you know, while it's still a process of elimination and testing, the fact that these files are linked up does make it a lot easier. Yeah, so now I've got a cleaner edge here. I'm a lot happier with that. And we can, I think we still have these as, what do we have? Oh, we have it mixed in with gray. I'm gonna get rid of these guys that we're not using. Yeah, we'll leave that alone. Okay, so I think at this point we're ready to think about how we're going to apply this metallic mask rather, to everything. Right. We're going to start at the top and work our way down. But first, I think probably let's make our input parameter. So we're going to create a new input parameter for our metal veins. With the label. And we're going to hook all these guys up to the same input parameter. So I'm going to leave it between 0 and 1. So we'll call 0 the veins being off, and 1 the veins being on. So the first thing we want to do, and we're going to use this mask for all of it, because this is going to determine that area for all of these various maps. And now we're going to just get a, now you know what, instead of a flat color, let's get a gradient. That might be more fun. We'll get a gradient, and we'll go in here and into the gradient editor, turn our gradient on, and pick a metal color. So I'm thinking like a gold. It's a little too yellow. And then we'll have it go into more of like a coppery color. Something like that. So, you know, it's not just a flat color. You can plug that in there. And, you know, why don't we just use this for, it's not working so well. We can go ahead and use this as the grayscale map that we're going to plug in there. And we've used that mask for the metal areas, and now we have this color, which is probably way too orange still. We'll fix that later. But this color is now coming out. So it's, at this point, it's just a color. But we want to be able to turn this on and off. So each one of these nodes we're going to be doing slightly different things to, but they're all based off of this one mask and that one input parameter. In this case, the easiest way to turn these things on and off is with opacity. So like 0 to 1, and that's a straight up relationship with the number that we've already set in. So that's really simple. All we have to do is come in here and hit that input parameter, and now we've assigned it to that color. And it's now set at 1, and as we move the default, it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and eventually it goes to 0. Great. We can also create a special mask. Well, I mean, a special normal map that's going to respond specifically to these areas. And what we're going to do is we're going to lay it on top of this one. Now, normally, I would use a blend node. I mean, an overlay node with my blend, because that way you can kind of merge the two normals together. In this case, we're not going to do that, though. We're going to do a straight up copy, so it's actually going to lay it on top of the other one. I'm going to use the same mask for the normal as we're using. We're using the same map for the normal and for the mask, and we're going to fill that alpha with input. And now it's going to change the normals as we move that slider up and down. One of the things I want to check for right now is to make sure that there isn't too much competition with the normals that are underneath it, because we might want to actually go back into our original mask and just flatten those out. Let's take a look at what happens as we move our slider around. I want to see a lot. It's hard to do all on one screen. Okay, there we are. Yeah, it's not really. Maybe what's the intensity on this normal? This one is pretty low. Let's see what happens if we set this one higher. If it makes a visual difference, whether or not we have it in or not. See, because I'm not really seeing. And I think I kind of want it different. All right, we're going to change our metal mask. Right now, it's exactly following what's happening here. Let's go back into our Photoshop and mess around with this a little bit. We are going to have to get the offsets squared away if we do this. I'm going to go ahead and merge these two layers. I'm going to make a copy. And then I'm going to go into my filter gallery. Oh, look, it's exactly the one I wanted. And I'm going for this glass one. I love this glass. I'll use it when I make veins like this, because it messes it up in just the right way. And it gives you like these funky swirly things, which I think are kind of cool. So you can go ahead and do that. Now, I'm going to double, because we did touch the edges, so we are going to get seams. So I will offset and double check all of this stuff. And I'm looking specifically down the middle. I mean, we may have gotten lucky and just can't see it. But I'm just going to kind of go down the line here and check. You know what? Actually, it looks pretty good. I'm going to leave it alone. But I am going to offset it again so it goes back to its original position. And now let's save this as our metal map. And see how that works. Oh, much better. Now it's actually looking like it's something different. Yeah, I'm way happier with that. And now I think what we want to see happen is I'm going to go back into that original mask, that grayscale mask that we're using for the normals, the bump one. And I'm gonna turn this on, and I'm going to just, the entire folder, I'm just gonna make transparent. I just want to see what I'm doing. I'm going to come into my colors here. There we go, yeah. And I want to pick up the right color. So I think, you know, I'm just going to go with white. And I have a nice sort of bristle brush set in with a scatter, so it's going to give me a nice fuzzy line. Maybe a bit smaller though. And I'm going to start flattening these areas out completely. And if I've got that metallic turned on, again, I'm being super careful around the edges. If I don't have to touch it, I'm not gonna. And I'm kind of giving them sort of a nice flat area to kind of do their own thing. I don't want to get rid of too much because it is going to make a flat spot as far as the normals are concerned. But it means there's less competition. And again, I'm doing it on a separate layer so that if I don't like the results in Substance, it takes no time at all to change it back. And this way I don't have to worry about my history and how many brush strokes I've got going on, any of that. So let's take a look at what this looks like. I'm going to, well, we've only got 2 of them. I'm going to quickly just check my offsets and see whether or not I created any seams for myself. A little bit up there. So maybe just a little touch there. Go down the line. It looks all right. Yeah, I think other than that, I think it's pretty good. So again, we offset and offset, and now everything's back to its original position. What's that over here? I'm going to get a clone tool and quickly fix that. Again, I'm going into my upper layer, making sure that I'm sampling all layers. And I'm just going to get rid of that. And maybe this little one down here. And I know that's not changing anything because it's right in the middle of my image. So we'll save this again. And it's this one. And that's, so this becomes easier to see. It's like it's not competing with the stuff underneath it quite so much. And let's see what that looks like as we bring our veins down. If we didn't, yeah, I think that's all right. I'm going to have to deal with that a little bit later, but I kind of like the idea of them being a little bit, you know, this area being more of a ledge. So we might go back and hand paint this map, the height map, and have it sort of comport more to what's going on with the colors. Let's see. I'm going to make a copy of this, turn it on. No, not the black and white. I'm going for the color now. I'm trying to make it easy for myself to visualize what I want to see happen with this mask. I want sharper edges on it. And so I'm going to get this brush, maybe not 100%, but close. And I've got that correct. And I'm going to come, oops, I'm still set as the clone tool. So let's do that whole brush thing over again. And I'm going to just make this edge more solid in the sense that we've got a lot of fade areas, and I think it's giving us problems as far as the way the edges are. You know, I would prefer like a little cliff, a little baby cliff, without quite so many jaggedy bits that pop up along the edges. It, you know, kind of looks like noise, and we're getting that because there's it's not as clean an edge as it could be. So having done, you could, I just find it easier to do this sort of thing with a brush. And now I'm going to go into it with my lasso tool and do it. And I'm just going to fill up this entire area, but I'm kind of going in the middle of my brush stroke. And it's going to give me, it's going to give me kind of a rockier edge because I'm using a pen. I'm using a Wacom tablet, and the way I have the pen set, it's pressure sensitive, and it's not erasing like literally 100%. And so, if all goes well, this is going to kind of have a shadow edge on it. And the first edge I did is more rounded, and the second edge will be more of a straight line. I'm going to finish this side up, and then I'll do the other side. There's no reason why you have to watch me do this on the other side. So I'll just finish off this lasso. And I'll pause it and I'll come back. Yeah, as I was doing that second part, I actually realized that this isn't going to work. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to make a brand new mask because it's not just the outside that we're dealing, it's not just the inside that we're dealing with, we're also dealing with the outside. So those edges aren't going to come out the way I wanted them to. I'm going to make a brand new layer mask off of this. So I've got these clean edges now, and I'm just going to, well, I'm going to get rid of this one. And I'm going to apply it here and turn this off. So now we have this clean mask. This stuff is kind of messing that up a little bit, but that's no sweat because what I can do here is I can just control click on the layer mask itself, come in here, and I think I'm just going to delete this stuff. So now I have, well, I don't like this. I'm going to just quickly get a brush and just get rid of that spot there. So now I have this, you know, flat mask that's going to give me much more of a clean edge along the edges, which should work better as far as all that noise is concerned. So let's see how that works. Okay. And let's pull back a little bit. Yeah, you see, it's giving us this, I mean, what's going on in here is kind of weird, but the edge itself is good. So we now have we have 1 level, 2 levels, 3 levels. This one's a little bit noisy, but that's okay because we kind of wanted a little bit noisy, but I didn't really want that one quite so crazy. Kind of going a little long. We might want to think about softening that later, but I'm going to leave it for now. And we'll stop the video here. We didn't quite get to doing all the parameters, but I think that will actually probably fill up a second video, what with all the stopping and fixing and changing that I'm doing. So I'll see you in the next one.